Storynesthub.
I know some people treat Craigslist like any old thrift store, but the last time I used Craigslist was the last time I was desperately close to rock bottom. My crazy ex-girlfriend, whom I somehow thought I was going to marry, had just stormed out of the house and trashed just about everything I owned. So at that point, all I had in life was my truck and my buddy's house. The first place I went after she broke up with me was the bar, but then it was his place right after. Unfortunately, he had a roommate already, and they were both kind of bare bones type of guys, so I ended up passing out on the living room floor since they didn't have a couch I could lay on. In the morning, my buddy woke me up and said I could stay as long as I needed to, but I wasn't allowed to keep sleeping on the ground. The only thing he wanted in exchange was for me to use my truck to help him move a couch into the house. I said deal, and a few hours later, we were heading out to some random guy's house to pick up a couch. I've never cared for the concept of Craigslist, as I was always too paranoid to use it, but at that point in time, I couldn't have cared if I tried. When we got to the house, I was disappointed to see that it kind of looked like a druggie's house, but my friend reassured me that the listing said the couch was basically brand new. I didn't believe him until I saw the couch though, and he was right as far as I could tell. It still smelled like factory chemicals, but the guy though, he was exactly the sort of seller on Craigslist that always made me never want to use the website in the first place. He was definitely some kind of junkie by the level of crust, real twitchy and greasy with nasty teeth and a strong odor to him. But none of that's even the worst part. He said a lot of really weird things, most of which I don't remember, but there was one thing he said to us that seemed like a joke, but even in the moment, it gave me the creeps. You know, he said, you two guys aren't the customers I wanted, but money's money. He didn't say it outright, but he made it obvious he would have preferred it if my buddy and I had been two girls he could have tried to mess with instead of two men. Clearly though, he was an opportunist, and he needed the $40 for a hit of something, and he didn't really care. My buddy and I brushed him off, and we hauled the couch into the back of my truck, then got the hell out of there, cracking jokes about the guy all the way home until we got the couch in the house. After another night of drinking myself blind at the bar, we staggered back home, and I passed out on my new bed. When I drink like that, I don't wake up for at least 8 hours. However, that night was different. I couldn't tell why at first, but somewhere around 4 in the morning, my eyes peeled open, and I couldn't get them to shut again. I had a pounding headache from all the whiskey, so I got up to drink some water. I staggered into the kitchen, poured myself a glass, and as I was drinking it down, I heard something. Maybe it was the house creaking, I thought, but I wasn't sure what my buddy's house sounded like yet. The wind sounded like it was picking up outside too. Lots of leaves were rustling. Actually, no, I thought again. That's gotta be a raccoon or a possum or something making all that noise. I couldn't help myself from investigating though. It's in my blood. My buddy keeps his trash can in a little area right behind his front fence gate, which ran along the outside-facing wall of the living room. There were a couple of windows, so I thought I'd peek outside to try to see what kind of critter it was. But when I looked, it was that goddamn druggie creep that sold us the couch. He was crouched down right outside the window like he was trying to look for a way into the house. He even had the audacity to smile. "Enjoying the couch," he said through the glass. I banged my fist against the window and let him have it. "Get out of here, you son of a bitch!" "You're messing with the wrong house," I said. The man scattered as soon as I raised the alarm, and my housemates poked their heads out of their rooms to ask what was up. But when I told them, they just shrugged and went back to sleep. I stayed up all night waiting for him to come back, cursing myself for not realizing that the guy was following us home. We were lucky he didn't try his luck while we were at the bar. When my roommate woke up, I made him help me take the stupid couch back to the curb, and I told him I'd just buy one from the store, but wouldn't you know it? About 30 minutes later, I glanced outside, and who else do I see but the waste of flesh? Some ways of space friend of his in a beat-up old truck taking their couch right back. That pissed me off. I realized we fell straight into their plan. Their plan was to rob us the whole time, and since it hadn't worked out, they took their bait back. I just hope whoever buys it next doesn't turn out to be the girls that weirdo wanted. I live in a small town called Julian in California. I had started renting an apartment in some guy's family house. I was browsing Craigslist daily for some cheap furniture to fill the apartment with, or maybe even free furniture if I was lucky. After a week of looking for specific items like a living room couch and TV stands, I stumbled across an ad titled in all capitals, "Giving away Maplewood TV stands mint condition." The ad obviously caught my eye, so I clicked it in a heartbeat. But the first thing I checked was the date of posting. It said it was posted a couple of hours ago. This was a very good sign. The ad had a picture of the stand. It looked pristine. The description gave an explanation as to why the owner was giving it away. Apparently, her boyfriend was going away to the military and didn't have room to store a lot of his furniture, nor did he have time to sell it. She would be moving back in with her parents. There was a number attached to the ad which said call or text. I shot the man a text expressing serious interest in the stand. First thing I noticed was the green text, meaning he didn't also have an iPhone. That was always annoying to see because usually that meant the person would take longer to respond, and I couldn't see when they were typing. However, the person got back to me surprisingly fast. She introduced herself as Anna and said I could come take a look at the stand the same night at 9:00 when she would get home from work if I'd like to. I got back to her within 10 seconds saying, "Yeah, absolutely." She sent me her address. I thanked her, and she didn't respond after that. Come 2 o'clock, I sent her another text just to confirm that I could still come. She didn't answer. By 8:30, I was getting a little concerned, so I decided to call her. It rang 5 times, then went to voicemail. I didn't leave a voicemail, but she finally texted me back a few seconds after I called her. She said, "You could come now." So I put the address into the GPS, hopped in my car, and off I was to the destination. I pulled up to the house and knocked on the door since she said, "Don't ring the doorbell." I gave the door 3 sets of knocks, to no avail. I tried calling her again. She didn't pick up. But after the call didn't go through, she sent another text telling me to just let myself in. I stood there for a second and read her text over and over, at least 3 different times before responding back. Is there a problem? I thought it was weird that she was telling me to let myself in. She didn't respond to that text though. So after a few seconds of thinking it over, I grabbed the doorknob and pushed open the door. It made a very distinct and alerting sound, so I was positive Anna could hear it from wherever she was. I shut the door. It was on the darker side in the house, mainly because it seemed like a lot of the curtains were shut. It also had a very distinct mildew, cottony smell. I heard a voice call out from upstairs, telling me to come up. I said, "All right, be right there." But her voice sounded weird. I couldn't quite put my finger on it. Halfway up the stairs, they called out, "Anna, right?" She replied back, "Yup." Again, her voice sounded odd. I got to the top of the stairs, and there were 2 sides of the hallway I could go down. I playfully called out, "Which side?" With a slight laugh in my voice, even though deep down, I was finding the situation incredibly sketchy. Anna's voice came from the left side, from beyond an open bedroom door. I walked to the doorway and stopped. I didn't enter the room, though it was a massive room, mostly void of furniture. I poked my head into the room and didn't see anyone. "Anna?" I said. No answer. I was already inching back away from the doorway. "Anna?" I said one more time. This time she replied, "Over here, just come inside." But it sounded like she was right behind the open door, and now I was realizing what was off about her voice. It wasn't a she at all. I was 100% sure it was a man pretending to be a woman. I said, "I forgot something in my car. I'll be right back." I turned for the stairs. That's when the door pulled open completely with force, but I was already on my way down the stairs before I could see who opened the door. I got to the bottom of the stairs, and I heard in a suddenly deep, haunting yell, "Come back!" I opened and slammed the front door shut behind me, and when I got to my car, I never felt more relieved in my life. I drove down the street, not looking back at that house. I blocked that number I was given as soon as I got home. When I went online to report the Craigslist ad, it was already taken down. I figured I'd leave well enough alone. It was not my problem anymore, and I would never go back to that house again, nor concern myself with it. It's still definitely a haunting memory to look back and hear that voice as I was walking up those steps and behind that door. What would have happened if I wasn't wise enough to run away? I'm sharing this life experience of mine with the internet as a public service announcement to be careful on Craigslist or any similar websites. I happened to be browsing the for sale section of Craigslist, trying to find a used laptop. One listing really caught my attention, a Dell touchscreen laptop for $250. It looked like it was in good shape with very few minor cosmetic imperfections. I texted the owner, who introduced himself as Dave, and told me I could come pick it up that same night. He offered to meet halfway somewhere so that I wouldn't have to drive all the way out to his place. I live in the countryside, so he lived solo, 10 miles away, which would equate to a 20 to 25-minute drive. Since there aren't many notable places near either of us, we agreed to meet at a 7-Eleven parking lot. I got there at the agreed-upon time, which was 10 p.m. sharp. I waited around for a few minutes, then I decided I was going to give him a call. But just as I took my phone out of my pocket to call him, his name came up on my phone. He was calling me. I picked up, skipping the hello, and just said, "Dave, what's going on?" There was a loud background noise on his end, maybe from his driving. There was an initial moment of silence before he started talking. He said he wouldn't be able to make it all the way to 7-Eleven because his car was making weird noises and he didn't want to go too far from home. So he pulled over to the side of the road off some side street. But when we say side streets out here, we don't mean side streets surrounded by buildings or houses. Side streets out here usually mean roads with no streetlights and surrounded by forests or farms. He gave some bizarre description of where he was. There was no way I'd be able to find it ordinarily. So I had him send me his location through his phone. He really was just parked on the side of some side road somewhere. I really didn't know if I was comfortable going at this point. It seemed way too suspicious. I'd heard all about those Craigslist horror stories before, and this seemed like the cliché build-up to one. Against my better judgment, I started driving over to Dave's location anyway. About 5 minutes of driving later, on some completely pitch-black road, I eventually saw the reflection of someone's taillights parked on the side of the road, so it had to be him. I pulled up behind the car on the grass next to a large cornfield, but kept the car running. I turned my headlights off for a second, and it literally became blackness in every possible direction. So, I turned the headlights back on. Weird though, I didn't see any light from his car, not even the light from a phone. I called him again. He picked up on the first ring and said he had to run into the crops to take a quick piss and to just get into his car so that when he gets back, he could quickly show me his laptop. He hung up before I could even get my response in. This was too weird for me. I really didn't know what to do. I guess I figured I'd step out of the car and just wait behind the door for this Dave person to come out. He said he went into the crops, so I kept my eyes on the right side of the road by the crops. What a strange place to have any kind of exchange other than a drug deal. It didn't seem right at all. I stood right by my car door for the longest time, easily 2 or 3 minutes. There was no way he was peeing for that long. He was starting to seem like it was time to go. I'd give him another 30 seconds, I figured. In the final moments of my waning patience standing there, I thought I heard rushing around coming from the crops. I kept doing double takes from one side of the crops to the other. "Dave!" I yelled. The brushing sounds on the crops faded away, but a crackling leaf or two from behind my car made me turn to see someone sneaking up on me from behind my car, exactly what I feared would happen. But that didn't make it any less horrific as I jumped into my car and floored it before the door was even fully shut. I literally love myself for thinking to leave the car running. If I turned it off, I may not have escaped in time. Deep down, I kind of knew the situation was far too suspicious to be real, but really, do any of us ever expect things like this to happen? These things are only supposed to happen in horror movies. You're not actually supposed to experience them for yourself. I guess it just remains a story to tell friends and family for years to come.